being child-free does not necessarily absolve you from motherhood.
And mothering.
And I'm the firstborn. I've practically, without choice, being in situations where I have mothered my siblings. I look around left, right, center. I'm constantly mothering without choice many times. And so this is the one choice I can make for myself. That,
You know how we were saying we both go to the theater solo, and I love that experience of like just going to the theater. Sometimes I go with people, sometimes I go on my own. But I've noticed anytime I go on my own and then I meet people there who I know, I feel the need to explain why I'm alone. I'm like, I don't know, my friends could come, or I don't know, because this play is, because I'm Kikuyu, like, because this play was in Kikuyu, I couldn't really find people to come with me. And very recently I caught myself doing that, and I'm like, but why do I feel the need
to
explain? Because I can just make a choice to come to the theater alone, and it's a perfectly valid choice, or to go and eat alone, or to go to the movies alone, or I travel solo a lot, and I love it and I enjoy it, because I find when I travel with people, I always feel like I need a holiday from the holiday, because for me, I rejuvenate my energy very internally.
I am a better auntie because I think I'm child-free. That's what I think for myself, because I'm child-free. When my nieces and nephew come to hang out, I'm able to like completely and fully invest with that time together without being the distraction of, but I'm also still trying to outsource care for maybe another child who then my sisters don't feel like it's just the focus on them. I feel like that I'm a better daughter and a better auntie because I am child-free. In terms of I can be able, if mom needs something, I have the flexibility to maybe up and go and be with her, whether it's my grandmother or whether it's my whoever it is. Like if somebody in the family needs something, I have that flexibility to be able to, in ways other people cannot do that. Yeah.
I have never framed it for myself that way, but listening to you, it really resonated with me, that I feel I'm a better daughter and a better auntie because I'm child-free. Because I have the flexibility to do things that my siblings might not be able to do. And I say this cautiously because if you're listening, please do not take advantage. But, like we have the flexibility of time. Life is messy, beautiful, complicated. We juggle family, work, love, and its expectations. But sometimes we just need to talk about it out loud. This is that space. A place to laugh at the chaos, honor the challenges, and celebrate the wins, both big and small, where stories are shared, hearts are open, and no one is pretending. Authenticity is welcome here. So pour your tea and join me, because there's a space and a seat here for every version of you. This is Conversations with Kũi. Hello and welcome back to Conversations with Kũi, a safe space for hard truths and radical vulnerability, where we talk about the lives that we're actually living, not only the lives that we were taught to want. Today's episode, at the heart of today's episode, is really choice, self-agency, and living life on your own terms. Specifically, what does it look like, or what does it mean when, as an African woman, you intentionally choose to be child-free? And with me today is Cate Nyambura. Welcome, Cate.
Thank you.
Who made this decision for herself very early on in life when she was still in her 20s. And she will help us understand and unpack this topic through her own lived experience. But before we get into it, I would like Cate to introduce herself to our listeners.
All right. My name is Cate Nyambura. I describe myself as many things, but professionally, I work in the nonprofit and philanthropy world, focusing on gender and global health. In my personal pastime, exciting times, I'm a plant mom.
As am I.
Yes, so I have quite uncountable number of plants.
Good.
And I am a bon vivant. I love life.
Good.
Yes.
Love it, and love the plant mom bit, because I am also one. And I also want to really sincerely, deeply thank you, Cate, for being here today and for sharing space with me, because I know you have just landed off a flight from New York this morning. So obviously must be very tired, very jet lagged, but you still chose to be here with us today and share space. So I'm deeply grateful for that.
There's nowhere else I'd rather be.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Love that.
Yeah.
So to start us off, Cate, I'm curious, and partly also, my curiosity is also partly because, as I was saying to you earlier when we were chatting just before this, I was saying to you, when I was in my 20s, I really don't think I would have had the kind of clarity to make such big life decisions. So I'm very curious, what informed you to make this decision, but also to make it so early on in life?
Yeah, so I think mostly like anybody else or the average person, I assumed or I was raised up to assume that you go through life at a certain point, you want to have children. So early on, at the time that I was making this decision, I had just graduated undergraduate. And so I thought to myself earlier on that if I wanted kids, I'd want to have them earlier, right? In my 20s and possibly even earlier 20s. And right then I also had a partner. And so I assumed that if I finish and graduate, I would proceed to potentially have kids. And then I asked myself, pause, why do I want to have kids? Do I even want to have kids? So I was forced to grapple with a choice, given my inclination to possibly have kids earlier, and also at the time where I was just assuming it's one of the things you have to do. And so I interrogated myself, and I was like, why do I really want to have children? Do I really want to have children? And so I sat with it, and I kept reflecting, and it hit me, actually, I don't want to have children. And I answered that for myself. And when I said this to my partner then, his response was, is it that you don't want to have kids, or is it my kids you don't want to have? The assumption that kids belong to the partner and not me. But I think that was the response. And of course, that relationship did not work. But I increasingly continued to reinforce that choice. My friends who know me and who've known me for years, I mentioned this to them, and I still am friends with them. So people were like, oh, but you'll change your mind. Because I started being very vocal about my choice, about I don't want to have children. Many of my other friends had thought about it, but they hadn't vocalized it, or it hadn't been a point of discussion. But at this point, you're graduating, so there's an assumption of you will have children. At the time, if in a typical Kenya universities, people are possibly getting married or having children. And so it's a topic that's really around you quite a lot. And then also parents and family, they assume that, what's going to happen now? You have graduated. You also you've started working here and there. So what's your plan on this?
Yes.
And that's, I increasingly kept saying, I don't want to have children. My mom was like, no, you're not serious. And my friends were like, some were like, you'll change your mind. That's actually the most popular response. You'll change your mind.
Yeah.
And so I think my friends who increasingly have seen me down the line making the same choice and being very vocal about it, they'd be like, oh, so you were serious. Because apparently it's supposed to be an unserious choice. That, she's not serious. She's having a moment.
Yes.
She'll come through a phase. Yeah, she's going through a phase.
Yeah.
She'll get out of it. She'll change her mind. So that's how I came to the choice.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is really so interesting to me, because, and that thing of you will change your mind, I've had it as well. So I'm child-free as well, partly by choice, partly maybe circumstance. So I've never felt a strong desire for motherhood myself. But I've always been open to it if the right person for me came along, right? It's not like a definite no for me. But I also hear that a lot, like, oh, you'll regret it when you're older, or you will change your mind. I mean, and for the record, I'm already like in my early 40s. So this regret that was to come when I was older, I'm still waiting for it to come.
I've been told the same thing, and now I'm in my 30s. Yeah. And increasingly, as I vocalize my choice, I realize there are many times I wake up and I don't know many other things, but I do know for sure I want to be child-free and continue to be child-free. And I've been told the same thing, that, you'll change your mind. You haven't met the right person that you want to have kids with. And also, it's really evolved my assertion with family, because I felt like I didn't have to keep explaining myself this much.
Yeah.
But now I seem to have to do it, because initially I was giving people grace. Now it's just becoming irritating to me.
And did you become vocal about it by choice, or because you felt people like it's because you were trying to over-explain it, or was it a choice, whether conscious or unconscious, to be like, no, actually, this is a perfectly respectable choice and people need to respect that?
I think it's both. It's both, and people ask, when are you planning to have children? What's your plan? At some point you're in a relationship, and one of the relationships ended purely because of the child-free choice, and that was the actual determinant of, we're serious. What's your plan? I'm like, I am child-free. I said this from the beginning. But I also felt that even people who understood were like, but you don't have to keep saying it.
Why though?
Exactly. Like,
because we don't tell the reverse to people with children. Like, you don't need to keep saying you want children.
I've been told enough times I don't have to say it. Like,
but
it's
why?
not apparently maybe I sound too proud. I don't know, or I'm very assertive, I'm very clear.
Yeah.
So it's very few spaces where I felt like my voice was my voice, because either I'm being rephrased, paraphrased. People are like, oh, are you sure that's what you're saying? Amma, you're saying you don't have kids now.
No.
It's always people really unpacking, over explaining, or reframing, or trying to be like, we didn't hear you correctly, or you're not saying this exactly, are you? Or you're an African woman, that's a very weird choice. So it's always that, the misconceptions of what I'm saying and my choice amongst even family. My mom was like, oh, so you are serious? She was one of those people of you are serious. Yes.
And for me, so when some of these comments come from older generation, I can show grace. Because I'm like, there's a generational gap, there's a generational difference in the way we think about things. And for the generation of my mother, possibly your mother, womanhood was very much defined by getting married and having children. But when those comments come from my peers, people who are younger, I have a real problem with that, because I'm just like, you should know better. And if you're saying this to me, it means you're going to keep perpetuating this message to like generations beyond us, But you've mentioned partnership and relationship a couple of times as you were responding. Okay, first two things. I have two questions. So first, I'm very curious to know how you're able to navigate relationship and partnerships in the context of this choice you've made to be child-free. But specifically about one of the relationships you mentioned, you said, I had said this from early on. So this person got into the relationship knowing fully well what your choice was, but was there like an expectation that you'd change your mind? Or because if you knew this from the beginning, how has it then become the main reason we're breaking up,
So I'll begin with the first question.
Okay.
Surprisingly, I know very many men who actually are child-free and want to be child-free, but nobody by choice, and nobody asks them as many questions as I have to answer. I actually have met many men who are chosen to be child-free, but they don't have to grapple with the context, the questions, or the pressure, because apparently men don't have a biological clock, possibly that, or the reproductive labor of society is not pinned on men. Right?
Yeah.
So that's number one. So I haven't had an issue getting into partnership or being partnered up, but I do think that it's a different connotation where people have said to me, oh, you'll end up with a Muzungu. You're not African enough. Or other people from outside Africa be like, but that's a very unusual choice for an African woman. So either all around, it's conceived as a very interesting choice, depending on who you're speaking to. And I think the second question is, I think it's both ends. So it was a very funny situation where we were dating while in different countries.
Yeah.
And so naturally the progression was like, oh, at some point you might want to consider to live in the same place. And, we need to have an understanding of what our life will look like. And I'm like, actually, I was very clear. I don't want to have children. And there's no half a child. So they really isn't.
It's black or white. There's no gray.
There's no gray.
Yeah.
And so it was disappointing. And I think the person assumed if we progressed, I would make concessions. And one of the last straws was them, I think was them asking the mother to call me to convince me to have children. And I was like, all right, interesting. So it's that question of your choice really is not serious and it can be negotiated. And I don't think it's coming from a bad place. It's not enough child-free women who are vocal.
Yeah.
And as you said, for some people, it's not always a hard, firm no. It's like if a partner
right
comes
partner,
up,
yes.
I'm happy to go along.
Yeah.
But for me, I don't, how child-free I want to be? If I met somebody who's divorced and they have children, I wouldn't consider dating them.
Wow.
Because I don't want to be
not
have
even
children.
like they're not yours. They'll just be like theirs, but still you're just
because
like no.
I'll be mothering.
You'll be
in some way.
mothering.
The only way I'd consider it
Yes.
is maybe if somebody is widowed, that's not their fault.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I feel
What's the difference though? Because children would still be in there.
But I feel like that's not the circumstances here are different for the
Yeah.
person.
Yeah.
And I'd really have to like them, and it would really have to be like case by case. Yes.
You'd have to call yourself for a meeting
And be like,
okay, Kate,
Yes.
let's think about this very keenly.
Because I really have built my life around my choices.
Yes.
Including this one. And I
Yes.
think it's important for people to see women boldly living their choices
Yeah, and living their truth.
And living their truths. And also just making choices that make people uncomfortable, but they're my choices.
Yeah.
And I live with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. What you said something earlier about there are not enough child-free women who are vocal, which I think is true. And So I have two things to say about that. Partly it's because, which I'd like to think this podcast is all about that. Partly it's because we are made to feel like our lives, we should be invisible, right? We're not worthy enough. Like our lives are not, we're not as worthy because really we have not had children. And same applies for marriage, to be honest. Like if you're, I feel that for marriage and motherhood, if you're an unmarried, child-free African woman, there are different problems, but there's a lot of similarities. So it's like, you should be very invisible. In fact, you're probably a bad influence. Your life is not as worthy. Like you're not really allowed to have voice. And for me, part of doing this podcast has been around giving voice to people who have chosen to live differently, people who have made alternative choices and are proud of those choices. And they're not hiding those choices. And, we're here, we're proud, we're loud kind of thing, right? But another thing is, I know at least 2, maybe 3 women in my circle, not in a circle, but people who I know in my network, who said to me once at different times in my life, when they say to me, Koi, they have children, and said, Koi, I love my children very much. But to be honest, it's a choice that it's something I did for my husband. Given the choice, me, myself, I would never have had children. But I met this man, and because I loved him and I wanted to be with him and all that stuff, I made that concession. And so maybe that's why there's also an assumption sometimes that you will make particular concessions if you meet the right person. But yeah.
I think for me, the right person is a person who aligns. We are aligned in terms of the choices they've made. Because the people who you're aligned, but they don't like things like travel, or they're not as curious. And also, not every child-free person is worth dating. Also, they could have.
True.
You could find a man who's child-free, but he's an abuser, right? So I think there's assumptions that. But for a long time, I stopped talking about my child-free choices because it was irritating with the misconceptions I had to deal with. Even my own friends who had kids would make comments like, because kids, I am very good with kids, and I love kids. I'm a very good auntie, I think so. But they'd be like, oh my God, you're so good with kids. So surprising.
Yeah,
And I'm like, that's not a very good thing to say, actually.
Yes, I can so relate with that comment because I'm very good with kids as well. And I love kids. I'm very good with kids. I love kids in that. I love kids, not I don't want them to be mine, but, I'm very good with kids. If they're somewhere, I'll be like, interact with them very well. And people are often very surprised, like, oh, you are so good with kids. And I'm like, why is that so surprising? I'm a good human being. And for the record, children also love me. Children gravitate towards me. And I'm like...
it's very interesting. I do that.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I also realize people don't talk about enough is that being child-free does not necessarily absolve you from motherhood.
And mothering.
And
Yes.
I'm the firstborn. I've practically, without choice, being in situations where I have mothered my siblings. I look around left, right, center. I'm constantly mothering without choice many times. And so this is the one choice I can make for myself. That, I make a joke that if I die today, nobody will be orphaned. Nobody will not have food or schools. It's different, but black tax, doesn't necessarily give you a break because you're child free.
Yeah.
We live in a society that's very deeply unequal, and many times there is that nature of you're a firstborn, you're a woman, mother. And then secondly, also the assumption that because you're child free, you have so much surplus
That.
of time
Girl.
and money and things, which I don't. And if I do, it's because of my choices. So let's really...
And you made different choices, and that's why you don't have the surplus. Don't
Yeah.
But completely, that I really hate that assumption that people make, that because you're child free, you have so much extra money, you have so much extra time to do everything that everyone else
which
cannot
you possibly do, but that's because of the choices I made.
Exactly. You're right. Even if I possibly, maybe I do, maybe I don't, right? Because we all, I might be child free, but maybe I'm caring for aging parents, or I have loans, or you don't know my situation, right? But also, even if I do, as you're very rightly saying, it's because I made certain choices. Now, you also made certain choices when you decided, whatever it is you decided with your life, live with that. And don't sort of try and make me feel guilty for the life choices that I have made. Because for me, actually, the irritation with that is this thing of people are almost trying to make you feel guilty or something like that. And I'm like, we all made choices. You made your choices. Live with them. Stop trying to guilt me about like my own choices, you know?
Yeah.
But I'm also interested, and you already started touching on this in terms of the pushback, the backlash, the misconceptions. Tell me a bit more about that.
I think the misconceptions is, first of all, it is that you don't have kids because you're selfish. I've been called selfish many, many, many times. And I'm like, there's nothing with women being selfish. Let me start with that. Selfish with your time, selfish with your guarding and protecting your peace and your mental health. But I don't necessarily think it's a selfish choice I made. I'm actually very selfless in different ways that I actually would, if I had made choice to have kids, I would have loved my kids unconditionally. And the kids and the people I have in my life, my nieces and my nephew, I truly believe they really thrive and are happy to be around me. But the other thing I also deal with is almost the misconception of I have to justify, I don't have kids, but I have nieces and nephew. As if I am justifying the proximity to motherhood. And it's almost like I'm not complete until I say that, right? And I think most child-free women end up saying that, or child-free people, like, I don't have kids, but I have nephews and nieces. And my friends' kids are also quite around me.
Yeah.
So there's that. People also thinking, first of all, it's a selfishness. Secondly, is you'll change your mind, which I haven't after 13 years, and I'm not going to change it, at least as of today, on the 26th of September, 2025. I'm not changing that choice. If anything, I truly wake up and I'm like, I'm very, I'm appreciative that I was able to discuss that with myself. I think the other bit is it's Western influence. Yes, because of, I think, my career and my education is like, oh, it's a Western influence. It's this kusomea America ndo inafanya afikire hivyo. Like this work that she does, this feminism of hers, it's part of that.
Yes.
The other misconception is, oh, maybe she doesn't like men and she's a lesbian. As if lesbians are not allowed to have children.
Exactly.
Or they're pigeonholed into that. As if queer people are not allowed to have kids, which is also very problematic and very homophobic in my opinion. So there's all ranges of misconceptions. There's other things of people truly expect me to have, like, why I made the choice. The misconceptions around it's a deeply traumatic, profound life event that happened that made me have this choice. People have gone ahead to ask, were you raped? Did men do something to you? Like, I actually just made a choice. Just nobody asks people who have kids, why did you have children?
Why did you decide?
Why did you decide? No, tell me why. It must be, like, really why? People have kids for the most selfish reasons. Mini-me's, they want retirement plans. We don't discuss that often. People who have kids are more selfish than I am if we're discussing that, but we're not having that discussion today. Maybe it's another podcast.
Maybe it is.
But those misconceptions that are thrown at us can be flipped back because I'm just saying I'm living through this life with a very conscious choice. The other misconception or the other thing I have to deal with is who will take care of you when you're old? Now, let's unpack that. There's me and there's my two sisters. My mom, we take care of her, but we're not there with her every day.
Yes.
And so this notion of if you're older, somebody will take care of you. First of all, it's very deeply problematic to outsource your old age to children.
Yes.
And not allow them to have their own independence and their own lives.
I fully agree.
And secondly, it's just, we can't discuss my 60s. I mean, my 30s enjoying them. Can we discuss now without necessarily deferring that? And you don't have kids for the 30s. I assume if you have kids, you have the kids for the moment you're with them now when they're younger and when they are grown. So that point of nobody will be there for you and you'll be lonely and you're sad and you're selfish. There's all sorts of misconceptions. And I think they come at you differently. And I think even the men I know who've chosen to not have kids deal with the same misconceptions of they're selfish or they're probably infertile or their infertility, which is also, I think, stigma around infertility, right? Like you're choosing to say you don't want to have kids because you're infertile. It's all points. You're dealing with infertility. It's just all sorts of things. And I think most of them also really point out the point of stigma around different issues, whether it's sexuality, whether it's fertility, or whether it's just how we perceive women's choices around their bodies and control over them, because it's a reproductive choice I've made, just like people have made the choices to have children.
I wanted to circle back to this thing of something you said, which people might find controversial, but I fully agree with that. There are a lot of people who have children for selfish reasons and actually for people like you and I who can pause and think like, is this really for me? Okay, maybe it's for me in certain circumstances, but I'm not just going to do it for the sake of doing it. I feel we are way more selfless than, because you're right. This idea of you're having children so that you can have a retirement plan or for someone to take care of you in your old age. Did you ask those children for their consent that they will be your carer when, like why would you put that burden on anyone?
On anybody.
Now, of course, children can choose out of honor and respect to care for their parents in their old age. Like you said, you do for your mom. Like I'd like to think I also do for like my aging relatives. But it should not be, it's your obligation. That was not the deal. When you parented me, you had an obligation to me because you chose to bring me into the world. The reverse is not necessarily true, that I now, because you took, they took care of you when you were younger, so you have to take care of them when they're older. They made the choice to bring me into this world. So they had a duty and an obligation to care for me.
To care, absolutely.
Exactly. But that does not translate. The reverse is not true, that I'm now obligated to necessarily take care of them in their old age, but I can choose to do it, So I very much like...
and your point also around people who've had kids. I have had people who've also had kids and are like, actually, I respect your choices and decision much better because for me, I had kids and I hadn't thought about whether it's a choice I had. Like they didn't pause. And they are still good parents, but they feel like if they were given an opportunity, they would have made a different choice. So I think the stigma also of verbalizing it is that you're pushing against societal boundaries. And so you're actually out here telling people you don't want to have kids.
And how dare you?
And how dare you? And they're like, oh, it's this feminism of yours, right? But also I've seen both men and women who are like, oh, they'd had more kids than they wanted, or they're like, actually for me, if I was given a choice and I love my kids very much, which I think it's very honorable to say, and they were like, no, if I would have made a different choice. Yeah, and some women didn't think they had that choice. And so I think for me, reflecting early on and being like, actually, it's a choice I have. At the beginning, dealing with that pushback, and later being like, listen, I don't owe anybody an explanation. But I do, because I still have to constantly address it in different ways. But now almost everybody's like, actually, she was serious. She's crazy too, because tell her about it and she'll really come back at you.
Yeah. But I was gonna also say, okay, I've lost my trail of thought. Oh no, I remembered now what I wanted to say. Someone did tell me, and I do say it at some point in the course of this podcast, that we also need to learn to sanitize the word selfish for ourselves. Like they said, oh, you're selfish. Yes, I am.
With my time and my peace.
Yes, exactly. I'm selfish. I have made... Because ultimately it's about choice. Whether you have children, don't have children, it's about choice and what choices align for you and your life. What choices are meaningful to you. What choices can you live with, as in your own life. I've never understood this thing people have of feeling the need to impose their opinions and their choices on others. I'm like, just live and let live. Like, seriously. Do you know, like, my own life is so busy. I can barely manage my own life. Where do I get the time?
To impose.
To start imposing my views on others,
we live in a society that's already very structured in norms around patriarchal norms, for example, an expectation for women to do certain things, whether it's get married, whether it's have children, be subservient in different ways. It changes depending on the society we are in and the era we are in. Subservience today looks very different from subservience during colonial times.
Yes.
And so I think it's just notions of patriarchy just reimagining and recalibrating. For example, the incel culture and all this attack online about women who vocalize their choices on anything, whether it's politics, whether it's deciding to have kids or not, whether it's, career choices. There's all this, bile that is targeted at certain people, and I think it's putting people in straight jackets.
Yes.
Yeah, like you have to do this because you're a woman, otherwise you're not woman enough.
Yes.
You have to do this because you're a man, otherwise you're not man enough. And so just stepping out of that boundary is in many ways challenging, and that's why we have all these misconceptions about people who decide not to have children, because the other discussion is, and then the other discussion I have to deal with is, but your mother had you, so I'm like, it was her choice.
It was her choice.
And I'm choosing not to.
Yes.
But that's also guilt tripping. Like,
yes.
And me having kids will not necessarily populate the entire world.
Yes.
Like this particular one person's choice. But I think, as you say, it's that visibility of women who are saying, listen, it's a choice just like any other choice, and deal with it. And doesn't most people be like, but who will marry you? as if that's a destination I have to aspire towards.
Yes.
And I think, again, if a partner comes along and we're aligned, yes, but it has to be on things beyond having kids. I mean, alignment, my assumption is, you're like, yo, why was the child free? Oh my God, let's get married tomorrow. I'm like, that's not how the world works.
We have to align on other things as
like,
well.
there's only one person who's child free too. Kate, please go find a person and get married tomorrow, because you will never find anybody else.
Yeah.
So I find that very interesting. So
Yeah.
it's just the world really just putting people in boxes. And making sure you don't step out of your boundary. Because if you do, in many ways, you're challenging social norms.
Yes.
And to be fair, let's also discuss having children. For women who have kids in the corporate space, women sacrifice so much to have children. One, whether it's their bodies, whether it's their career trajectories. If you have kids much younger in your 20s, you probably have to take time off, right? And there's the motherhood penalty. People around same career trajectory who are male in the same workplace, you won't have the same trajectory when you come back. They probably will have made much more strides. It will take you years of catching up. And if you have more than one child, that's you lose more ground and keep losing ground. We don't discuss that often enough, right? And we live in societies where we don't have enough childcare. Childcare is not, it should be a public service, but we don't have enough of that, right? So women literally are sacrificing their careers and their bodies to have children. And I think it's okay for women to make choices while reconciling all of that plus society's misconceptions. It's okay for us to have those tough conversations, right? In much other advanced countries, in other different countries where people having children is very expensive in the sense that one, childcare is very expensive. Yes, even here it's a bit expensive, but it's something you have to add on to your to-do list. Yeah. And often those expenses come from, if in a two-income household, they're not often equally shared. And even if they're equally shared, the other unpaid bit of raising, the actual raising, the emotional labor, often many times fall on the mothers, which is invisible work that the women don't get compensated for. But we have to also have those discussions in a broader context of inequality in the world in terms of how gender roles play out in heterosexual relationships, right? And I think that's something we don't often bring up when you're discussing women who choose to be child-free. Yeah. There is also an angle of that aspect, right? Travel and mobility. For example, if you have kids, your mobility is different across the world and within your career trajectory, whether it's money for travel, surplus as we discussed, whether it's travel and for work. Later is when I was grappling with when you look at JDs, willingness to travel as a requirement for mothers, that's not an easy thing.
Yes, yeah.
Either you have to convince employers to travel with their children. Oftentimes, it's a difficult. It's seen as an extra cost.
Or the kids are in school, so you can't pull them out to travel with you. Yeah.
And so I think we don't visibilize those discussions and struggles of mothers enough. And I think for me, I kind of grapple and think about it that way, right? Yeah. And what that means for women who make the choice to have kids in a society where they don't get all the support that they will possibly get. Yeah. And even in terms of the ones who have support, and if you're in a lower middle income bracket, it often falls on another mother, your mother, or another mother who comes from a lower income place for her to come and help you take for your children.
Yes.
And I don't think we think about care enough when you're discussing people's choices around being child-free or not. Or you're a firstborn and you're already raising kids. And so if you choose to be child-free, you really have already mothered ya kutosha, bila choice. And so you're like, hey, how many years am I going to mother throughout my entire life? No.
Yeah. Do you reckon people make that assumption about you because you were the firstborn and you parented your siblings?
Not the ones I speak to. Most of them are like, I'm just selfish or it's hard just being an anomaly.
Yes.
Yeah, but
an anomaly, oh my God. And this feminism thing.
And this feminism thing applies, yes.
But let's talk about how, so we've talked in depth about the backlash and the misconceptions. I'm interested in knowing how you actually handle that because it's a lot. I imagine it can be a lot. I mean, even for me, even though I'm not like vocal about being child-free or anything, but still I get a lot of backlash because of my life choices and the way I live my life. And sometimes it can get exhausting and tiring and irritating and it affects your emotional and mental well-being. So how have you, over the last 13 years, how have you dealt with the backlash? or like managed it?
Yeah, for the people I have to deal with, like my family, I think it was a matter of being assertive and being like, listen, this is not a phase. It's a decision that's here to stay. And so for some of them, my grandmother would often call me and she'd make a joke. Oh, send me money since you won't have to buy diapers. And one day I told her, if you ever really want to not see me again, let's continue with that trajectory. Because I was like, it was a joke, I was entertaining it, but increasingly it was just becoming continuous. And I was like, if I don't pause this and let her know that I love you dearly, but we can't continue with this. Like we have to put a pause to it. And even if it comes up now, it's in jest, but it's not something I have to deal with from adversity. Now she's like, this girl was serious.
Yes.
And sometimes she'll say things like, but you have all this money. She assumes I have a lot of money. Who will you leave it for? I'm like,
well.
It's so funny.
I hear that too.
I'm like, can you imagine? You think if I die today, my things will not have a place to go?
You know.
Trust me, they will have a place to go.
You know?
But I do feel like for family, I've had to be very assertive and consistent with my messaging. And for my friends, I feel like I have edged out the people I have to over-explain. So my circle is sanitized in that sense, where my friends, people I choose in my life are not, I don't have to over-labor by explaining. Now, in a setting where this comes up, social setting, I don't have to over-explain myself. It's a choice. And I don't have to keep belaboring it because that also kind of affirms that it's an exceptional, different choice. And I don't want to feed that narrative of it must be something so profound for you to make this choice.
Or like it could also come across as though you're somehow insecure in that choice. That's why you are insecure in that choice, and that's why you're over explaining it, you know?
Or it's just that I could be feeling exposed because I'm verbalizing it, but I try to keep it in a way where for the people I have to deal with, I'm like, clear boundaries, continuous. I'm like, actually, I was serious. I was very serious about this. But I feel like over time, my friends and people around me that I know, they're like, even my friends who are like, oh, look, we're serious. And that story has ended there. And even them, some of them have actually over time being like, actually, even me, I don't want to have kids. Just that they weren't as vocal means they're not in the spotlight. They will send people like, oh, you are like Cate. I'm like, but you also don't want to have kids. Why don't you why don't you bring it up? Or why am I the one who has to explain it? Yeah. So I've seen people who've chosen not they don't engage, but it's a choice they've made very quietly. And I think for me, because maybe I'm in the global health SRHR space, I often encounter the conversations much more. Maybe that's why, because of my career.
Yeah. And do you feel, I was going to write something down so I don't forget, but I'll ask since you've finished your answer. At the risk of sounding like this very annoying people, bear with me, but if ever in life it changed for you after, we've said as of 26th September 2025, you're very clear in your choice, and you do not foresee it changing. In the event it ever did, because I also believe in life people are allowed to change their minds, and that's perfectly fine. Not just about this kind of choice, about any choice. You can change your mind. Do you feel because you've been very outspoken and vocal about it, it would be hard for you to own a different choice?
And I've been asked that as well.
Oh, okay.
If it changed, it will be because I have I've made the choice, and I would assume with the agency and the information that I live my life with. So if I chose to have children at some point, then yes, I would own the choice, because people are allowed to, as you say, to change their minds, and that's also perfectly fine. I think that will feed into though I think the only worry I'd have is like, oh, look at her, we knew she'd change. That's the only thing that I'd have to think about. But listen, if it happened and I changed my mind, absolutely. I'd own the choice.
Okay, good. And I love that for you, because I do. Because another thing is, you never want any of your life choices to become your street jacket, right?
Yes, no.
Like, you want to be able to... Actually, I was very, very serious about it for this period of time in my life. And I have the liberty, because to me, that's also freeing, and it's also... I have the liberty to change my mind and make a different choice, and that's fine. And even then, you still don't owe anyone an explanation
absolutely,
as to why you changed your mind, you know? So a lot of the things you talked about when you are responding to my question about how you managed the backlash seemed to be more internal or individual. I created very firm boundaries. I was very assertive with my family. Have you had any other external support systems that have helped you navigate all the backlash and the misconceptions that come with this choice?
So your question kind of implies as if the way I read it and the way I'm hearing it, it might come across as if this choice has allowed me or has had me be in a place where I have to create a system around this one choice. But I feel like we live in multiplicities and complexities, right? And that's how I've curated my life.
Okay.
And so, like I said, my friends are a support system broadly for this and many other life choices. And even in terms of boundaries, I have boundaries for this and many other choices. Like my sister's like, Shironi Mkali. But that's because I'm like, we have to see enough women saying, actually, no, that doesn't work for me. Actually, that's a choice I've made. And I was serious. Did I stutter? No, I didn't stutter. And so I do think that the way I like to see this choice, it's also about many other choices. For example, solo travel. I do solo travel all the time.
As do I.
And I do get the other backlash of, you unachukua suitcase unaenda country ingine by yourself. As if
do people understand how nice that is and liberating?
But most people, I always have to deal with solo travel issues, and the same backlash comes. Or going out to eat alone. People assume solo, being alone, is because of lack of company.
Or lack of company.
It is not.
Or you go to the movies alone and they assume that.
I go to the theater alone. I
As
love
do
going to the
I.
theater.
Oh my God, yes.
But most people are like, if you do things alone, it's because you're alone. You don't have company.
Yes.
They come to interrupt you.
Yes.
And so I feel like even my friends, I've forced them to be like, actually, I'm naenda by myself. By myself. You don't want? Thank you, but no thank you. And so I feel like that support system, even my friends have seen me. And so one of my friends like, yeah, that's so Cate. So he was out eating and then he saw somebody eating by themselves. They're like, that's such a Cate thing to do. And I'm like, my friends have come to realize these are Cate things, not just this one thing, and so they choose all of me. And so that's what I think life should be, that you have a support system that is with you on all your choices, career choices, social choices, and the personality that you are, like the life of color or lack of color that you want to live and curate for yourself. Because then if we exceptionalize friends for this one choice, it means that it's we are kind of feeding into the narrative that it's an anomaly that needs a support system for me to survive it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but for some, in fairness, for some people, maybe not for you, but I could imagine how for some people, they might even have to seek maybe professional help, not to deal with that choice, but to navigate all the backlash that comes with it, right? And that's fair. Like, I don't think there's necessarily any shame in if someone is struggling with that kind of a decision, or they've made the decision and they're very clear in their decision and that they didn't stutter for nobody. But because it's coming with, because not everyone, we're all different. We all have different personalities. We all absorb backlash in different ways, right? And so for some people, it might be that they do seek some kind of help or guidance from whichever external source, just to help them navigate the decision and be able to stand firmly in their truth, very unapologetic and like, I own the decision and I own it firmly and, without...
So I think in that case then, one of the most therapeutic thing that I've gone through as relates to this particular choice is I went for a party one time, and at the party, it ended up that there was a couple of child-free people, including people who are partnered. And it was a Friday evening, and it ended up being, there was a nursery school teacher who was child-free by choice. There was different kinds of people that you would especially not think that they're child-free or that who wouldn't be verbalizing and vocalizing their child-free choices. And so we ended up sitting down and discussing all these misconceptions. So it was very freeing to hear people being like, actually, even I would not expect a nursery school teacher to be like, I am child-free.
Yes.
So in that sense, I feel like I have met enough people. Like I said, I have seen enough people who are child-free by choice, including men who discuss it.
Yeah.
So over time, it wasn't the anomaly I was made to believe it is, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, increasingly, after dealing with this for so long, I kind of remove myself from the people's comments, and it's like about them, not about me.
Yes.
And I think that has helped me over time, like with any other life choices and growth that comes, that I respond to it if I have to.
Yeah.
If I don't have to, I don't need to.
Yes. Yes.
And then I go to therapy, but not for this choice. I go to therapy for
other things.
And if this comes up, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how I reconcile it. Okay. That I do think that there's enough people I've seen.
Yeah.
And also increasingly I've seen enough blogs, enough Instagram, accounts that are, emphasizing and emphatically discussing this choice boldly. Because I kind of felt initially that there are things you can't say. There are things you couldn't say. Like, for example, I have more time, which is true, I do have more time, but maybe not. Maybe I don't have more time, right? So I feel like there are things that even though you are meant to still keep it kosher with how you discuss child-freeness. And I think that's what people will tell me, but don't say it like that because it's almost like you're now sounding like you're too proud.
Too proud as per, according to who?
That's the point.
By whose standards?
Like you can be child-free, like you said, but be very invisible. Like don't visibilize this choice. You're pushing it down our throat.
Yes.
As if you having kids is pushing your kids down our
throats. Or you having kids and being proud about that choice. As if no one will ever tell you, stop pushing your kids down our throats.
Yes. But I think the most nascent way it comes up is when you're maybe sitting down with people you met, friends or colleagues, and like, do you have children? I think responding to that without saying I also have nieces and nephew is something I'm still learning. But because I feel like that often is one of the very innocent and very easiest conversation starters. And so I don't receive it as I have to continuously bring it up as the only thing. Some people have asked why, or am I planning to have kids? Then we can have a discussion.
Yes.
But I feel like that's one of the ways in which it comes up in nascent normal conversations.
Yes. No, that's very true. I get that too a lot. Like, do you have kids? And sometimes I'll just be like, no. And like make it very clear I'm not interested in like carrying on with the conversation. But depending on what mood I'm in, then I might engage a little bit further on it. But I completely get that. The thing I need to unlearn, you know how you said for you, you need to unlearn the thing of saying you have nieces and nephews if you're maybe just randomly asked that question in a social setting. For me, one thing I need to unlearn is, for example, like, you know how we were saying we both go to the theater solo. And I love that experience of like just going to the theater. Sometimes I go with people, sometimes I go on my own. But I've noticed anytime I go on my own and then I meet people there who I know, I feel the need to explain why I'm alone. I'm like, I don't know, my friends could come, or I don't know, because this play is, because, I'm Kikuyu, like, because this play was in Kikuyu, I couldn't really find people to come with me. And very recently I caught myself doing that, and I'm like, but why do I feel the need
to explain?
Because I can just make a choice to come to the theater alone, and it's a perfectly valid choice, or to go and eat alone, or to go to the movies alone. Or I travel solo a lot, and I love it and I enjoy it, because I find when I travel with people, I always feel like I need a holiday from the holiday, because for me, I rejuvenate my energy very internally. So when I'm around people 24/7, we're in a holiday setting, yes, like I'll enjoy it and everything. It'll be great. But after the holiday, I'm like, I actually feel drained. I feel like I need to do a solo vacation to re-energize myself after this holiday, Yeah. So yeah, anyway, can totally resonate with a lot of the things that you're saying. But I also wanted us to talk about the joys and freedoms. And you already started alluding to them, like more time, travel more easily. I want to talk about the joys and freedoms of being child-free, because I really do feel that we are not allowed space to celebrate our choice of being child-free. Let's talk about that. What are some of the joys and freedoms of this choice that you have made?
I can start. So I think one of the things that I am as a person is that I am not a morning person.
Okay. Yes.
And so me not being a morning person, I always wake up and imagine, if I was a mother, I'd be a very selfish mother, or I'd be seen as a very bad mother, because my system wakes up at 10. So if you have a 2-year-old and they need your attention, and I would be very horrible in terms of, you'd be very, grumpy. I don't know what it is, but that just being able to have slow mornings, enjoy my tea, just wake up when I wake up is a gift I absolutely cannot. I wouldn't know if I had children.
Yes.
And I think the other things is school runs, for example. I'm imagining mornings will not be the same. And for now, I'm lucky I work remotely, so slow mornings are something I wouldn't trade for anything.
Yeah.
So that's a joy that I truly have from being child-free.
And which I can so relate with as a fellow non-morning person, yes.
And having OCD, like there's a way I want my things
arranged
and to be.
Right.
And so I'm imagining if you have kids, I'd probably be overly crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, or I'd be seen as fussy. And I always say if I was a mother, I'd be a very fussy mother.
Yeah.
So in that case, one person in the world is spared that fussiness.
One or more.
one or more, right? I think those things, and I travel, I do like the flexibility of
Yes.
being able to, whether it's for work or personal, being able to be like,
Yes.
actually, I can travel. I can
Yes.
pack and go whenever I need to or
Yeah.
want to, which is a joy that most people don't have.
Yeah.
The mobility, joy of mobility.
Yeah.
And mobility is currency,
Yeah.
whether in career or in terms of social circles. It is
Yeah.
a currency that we take for granted, and I think that is something that, and also pursuing hobbies that you like, whether it's travel, whether it's going to the theater and having time and space to do it, especially time, the time you get back from that is something that I truly appreciate. That being said, I do also find myself, so I am a better auntie because I think I'm child free. That's what I think for myself, because I'm child free. When my nieces and nephew come to hang out, I'm able to like completely and fully invest with that time together without being the distraction of, but I'm also still trying to outsource care for maybe another child who then my sisters don't feel like it's just the focus on them. I feel like that I'm a better daughter and a better auntie because I am child free in terms of I can be able, if my mom needs something, I have the flexibility to maybe up and go and be with her, whether it's my grandmother or whether it's my other, whoever it is. Like if somebody in the family needs something, I have that flexibility to be able to, in ways other people cannot do that. Yeah.
I have never framed it for myself that way, but listening to you, it really resonated with me that I feel I'm a better daughter and a better auntie because I'm child free. Because I have the flexibility to do things that my siblings might not be able to do. And I say this cautiously because if you're listening, please do not take advantage. But, like we have the flexibility of time and potentially resources to be able to do things for like, my grandmother is also still alive. She's 94, my maternal grandmother that I'm named after. So I do go to see her a lot. I'm able to do a bit more for her than I think I would otherwise be able to do if I had children, right? Same for my parents. And with my nieces and nephews, all age ranges, because I have a whole age range. In fact, at some point in this podcast, I do speak to two of my beautiful nieces who are in their 20s. I love that one of them at one point said to me, "Auntie, thank you for being my safe space." Because there's things that they cannot tell their parents or they feel they cannot tell their parents. But they know that there's this one auntie who always has the bandwidth for us and our things, And so I'm like, they're constantly talking to me about stuff that they might otherwise not be able to discuss with someone else. And I love that because these are people I care about. These are people who are very dear to me. And I'm like, yes, please let me be that. Let me be your safe space. I don't want your safe space to be someone who might lead you astray or who might have another agenda with you or whatever, right? Like I'm happy to be that space for you. And I believe part of the reason I even have the energy and the resources in terms of bandwidth is partly because I'm child free. So I can actually have that space, the mind space, the emotional bandwidth and all that for them,
And I also think the other thing the other thing that I do feel like a joy is being child-free and being very vocal about it means I can push conversations about other things beyond just this one choice. So it's very easy for me to be like, oh, but why are you jacketing this particular person, right? And they're like, oh, but you're always pushing things. I'm like, yeah, things are meant to be pushed.
Yeah.
You're meant to question why things are the way they are, right? And I think the other point is joys of I don't have the pressure. The joys of I can take a career break without having to worry about agency. Like, if you have children, you have the, as you say, obligation and duty to provide.
Yeah.
And if you're not employed, there are people sleeping hungry, not going to school. And so I'm absolved that choice maybe in a way. I still not fully because of black tax, but anyway, if I was to get to a point where I would like to take some time off, it will be okay. It will just be me sleeping hungry. That's what I keep saying. If I sleep hungry in my house, it's just me sleeping hungry, not children. And I feel like that's a joy we don't celebrate enough.
Yeah.
And blessing in disguise, maybe. But I do think that too helps to be able to at least think about provision and providence, which is something parents have to absolutely grapple with all the time.
Yes. I think I mentioned to you this earlier when we were chatting before we started this shoot, and I was saying to you the last almost 18 months, but it's even closer to 2 years, I just chose to take a career break. And truth be told, part of the reason I've been able to do that is because I am child-free. If I had school fees and mouths to feed and I don't know what else, there's no way
Hey, you can do that.
I would never be able to do that. And certainly not for this long, right? Like, at most it would be like a month. And even in that month, you're panicking because,
Yes. School
like,
fees and
exactly. But
medical
now,
insurance.
because it's just me, I can organize my finances in such a way that I can take an extended career break and then start doing creative things like this that bring me joy. And I know no one is sleeping hungry, no one is being pulled out of school. So yeah, I really do feel there's lots of joys and things to celebrate. About the choices we make, whether, like, for example, to be child-free. And we need to be allowed space to do that.
And to be vain is I think recently I was on a trip, then I went to buy, I love jewelry, right? And being child free, I can buy the jewelry I want and I can afford maybe. And my friends are like, you went to buy jewelry. I'm like, I don't have to worry about college fees. That was my rebuttal.
Yes.
They laughed, but I'm like, it's actually, you'd have to think about different choices,
Yes.
whether it's nails, like there are
Yes.
things you can do as much as
Yes.
you want to.
Yes.
If you are thinking
If you
about
are thinking,
provision.
exactly.
Yeah, so.
But even look at the language that you used, vain. Because society makes us feel like there's something wrong with that.
Yeah, because you like, and people who have children and have surplus,
Yes,
they buy jewelry.
But you,
for
when
me,
you do it, it's like you're a bit vain, and it's like
her money is for jewelry. So I started telling my grandmother, don't ask me for money. My money is for jewelry and lipstick. That's what I told her. That also kind of helps normalize. So she
Yes.
laughed, but she's like, okay, let's bring me some too.
yes.
So that's one of the ways of dealing with the complexities of discussing it all the time.
Yeah.
So also making jokes like, no, since I don't have kids, my money is for traveling and buying jewelry and clothes, which is not true, but really it's a way of also them seeing that I am allowed to buy myself clothes and jewelry.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
You can buy yourself nice stuff and I also liked what you said earlier about one of the advantages of making different choices. You didn't quite frame it like this, so I'm paraphrasing you, but one of the advantages of making different choices and being vocal about it is that you can also push on other subjects, because I'm very much that person in my family as well, like the extended family. Even when you say Doshiro ni mkali, I'm like, yeah, in my family it's always like, weh, koi ni mkali. But it's also because I'm also the person who will call out prejudice of any kind. I don't like prejudicial, you make a statement and I'm like, no, but why? Like, why are you saying that about that person? Like, I'm the person who will always call out injustice. I'll call out, like, I have, in some ways, earned the space.
But I feel like I do feel like having to assert myself over this one topic for so long made my family see actually she was serious. And when they say that, they're like, oh, we can't push her beyond what we've pushed her.
Yes.
Because she was serious.
Yeah.
Because I think one time I threatened to, if you really want me to have kids, I'll have kids and bring it to you 1 year for one day. They're like, you're serious? I'm like, yeah, see, you guys want kids. Okay, I'll deliver and bring it day one.
Yes.
They're like, okay.
It's
They're
okay.
like, and they're like, she probably will be serious because I got interventions. There was so many ways of dealing with it. But I feel like, people who make these kinds of choices are already seen as,
Rebels,
right? So my sister was telling me of a running joke in the family. I think she'll have kids, but she won't get married. They started discussing which will happen, which is crazy because I'm actually open to being partnered up if I find the right person. I don't necessarily look at marriage as the thing, but if I met somebody with whom we're aligned and we are, I think it's first of all the alignment and then we can discuss other things.
Yes.
So for them, they're thinking this is the one that she, marriage is what she might not do.
Yes.
But kids she will have. Misconceptions.
But listen, we're here, we're taking up space, we're unapologetic about taking up space. But I want to know, what would you say to a young woman, let's say in her 20s, who is feeling a desire for a child-free life, but then they're torn between that desire and maybe the expectations? I would say particularly your family, because, society, you can be like, whatever, it's just society. Okay, even though that's still a thing. But so they're torn between expectations that family and society have of them. But in their heart, they feel a desire to be child-free. What advice would you give this young woman who is in conflict?
So now I'm the child-free counselor. Child-free artist. So I will say you're allowed to come into yourself and you're allowed to make choices for yourself. It's not a selfish choice to make. but you have to be prepared from the navigating a very complex journey of whether it's explaining yourself, justifying yourself, doubting yourself, right? Or sometimes wondering, because it's seen as an abnormally.
Yes.
So you have to an anomaly. So
Yes.
you often find yourselves feeling like you're responding to very unnecessary questions, very intrusive questions, very irritating questions, and also you are constantly being questioned about your choices. So that would be my response. Like, allow yourself the grace to go through the journey while learning on it. It looks very different for different people. People have different families. People have different friends, and people are dealing with society's intrusion differently. And I think understanding that for yourself and seeing it for what it is, because many people end up either being silenced or being invisibilized, or they end up just being like, I'm just going to live this life and just...
Yes.
Which is the easiest thing to do, right?
And
but
and in fairness, it's also a choice.
It's also a choice to do.
It's a choice they can make.
They can make,
Yes.
right? So you have to decide for yourself early on what's the easiest thing to do. And you don't owe anybody an explanation. And that's something you have to be okay with.
Yes.
And you have to, understand for yourself what concessions you want to make or not, right? And unlearn some of the things that I unlearned earlier, like almost having to justify your choice. Like, yes, I don't have kids, but I have such lovely nephews and nieces.
I'm such a good auntie.
I'm such a good auntie.
Because underlying there is you're trying to show people like you're a good person, you're a good
I'm
auntie,
a good person.
I can mother,
I can mother, right?
Yes.
And I feel like I don't have to justify it to anybody, because mothers don't go saying that.
Yeah. And can I be honest with you? This is something I feel very strongly about. There are people who should not have children. They have children, but frankly, they should not have children.
Like which ones?
Well, not a general category. Just some people I see how they, for starters, like abusive parents. I'm just like, you have no business.
And neglectful
parents.
Yeah.
I'm like, do you really think you're a better human being because you have brought a human being into this world who you neglect, who you abuse, who you do not take care of? Like you are basically raising someone who will become a very damaged adult.
And there's no shortage of those kinds of parents.
Exactly.
Yes.
But then somehow society will view me, who is child-free, as the person with the problem. I'm like, can we focus our attention on those people who should not be having children at all? Really, they should not, There's a saying I really like from Maya Angelou. She's one of my favorite authors. It's not really a saying. She was, I think, giving a speech somewhere. And so there's a clip of it that kind of does the rounds on IG and so on. And, she's talking about how most people don't really grow up, right? They become adults. Like, it's this idea of not every adult is a grown up. And then, as she's giving this speech, she goes ahead to say, and then they even have like the audacity to have children. So it's like you just think I can just have children because now I'm a biological adult. I can just bring children into this world. And I'm like, do you understand the responsibility that you're bringing a human being into this world who'll be reliant on you essentially for the rest of their lives, not even just till they're 18, but certainly in their formative years? You can make or break this
And you
person.
made that choice. They didn't.
Exactly.
You made that choice. They did not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm just like, as a society, we need to like rethink this thing of like, oh, you choosing not to have children is the bad choice. I'm like, no, actually, maybe we need to talk about, should everyone be having children in the first place? Maybe.
And most people also admit that most most parents are finding themselves as parents not by design or by choice. It's, it happened, which is totally fine. But I do feel like there is an aspect of you're obligated, as you say, to provide, and the duty of care is so profound if you're a parent.
Profound.
And it scares me to think I will not be a good parent, right? Because that person, their destiny, their worldview, their perception of people and individuals is shaped first by their parents.
Exactly.
And I'm lucky to have had a good mom, but I'm like, there are people who didn't.
Yes, I'm also lucky I came from a very good home. I'm trying to remember, it was one of my friends, someone said this to me, but they said to me, the fact that you are even child-free because you think about this, everything you've just said right now, like the profoundness of that responsibility. And they were like, that actually is the reason you would make a very great parent if you ever decided to. So people like you and me who have chosen to be child-free, but who are very conscious about what that responsibility actually is, coincidentally, as much as we might be mocked by society, we would actually make very good moms. Should we ever decide to do, well, should I? We are very clear where you stand. Should I ever decide to do that, you know?
And I also feel like it all comes back to that when you're discussing child-free choices.
Yes.
Like there's almost that bit of, we almost find ourselves having, I've seen enough people almost circling back to that. And I agree with you. Like people who've made the choice have thought deeply about it.
Very deeply.
You don't just wake up and decide, I want to be child-free.
Yes.
Because I question myself, why do I want to have kids? Do I really want to have kids? And when I wake up, I'm like, if I was a mom, I would really be very absent. And given my job and how I'm in and out many times, I'm like, I'd be outsourcing parenting in many ways. And I'm like, I would imagine if you have kids, it would be great for you to provide the best that you can. Not that the ones who are good parents are not doing that, but you're doing the best of your ability.
Yeah.
But I do hear you that it's a very deep thinking that I feel I've gone through.
As have
but
I.
I also feel like many times we often almost use that to be like, that's why I'd be a good parent. It comes back to
Yes, it comes full circle. You're like,
Yeah.
and that is exactly why if I had made a different choice, I know I would be a very good parent. But I want us to finish up before we do, because you talked about doubting yourself when you were giving advice to this hypothetical younger woman. Has there been like self-doubt as you've been going through this journey? Is it like doubting the choice or doubting your sanity or doubting what was the doubt about?
I mean, you're inundated with all these questions, with all these intrusive conversations. So at some point you're like, hey, ama ni mimi niko na shida.
Okay, I get you.
Like, is this
Maybe I'm the problem.
Maybe I'm the problem.
I
And so I'm
get you.
So I'm starting to be like, Ama, should I consider having a child? Because there's no shortage of questions, noise,
Yes.
doubt that comes when you make this kind of choice.
Yes.
Right? And so I'm like, maybe I should rethink this choice.
I
And so
see
that's
what
the
you
doubt
mean.
I'm talking
I
about.
see what you
It
mean.
flickers here and there. But like I say, I continuously still think about my choice.
Yeah.
Not just this one, but many others. But I feel like particularly this one,
Yeah.
because I feel like there is that aspect of I don't take having a child lightly.
Yes.
Personally.
Yes.
I don't take parenting or being anybody's, parent lightly.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that's the profoundness that I would approach the doubts that I had. Like, and even if I was to still, like you say, change my mind, I'd still take that heaviness of the choice of being a parent, right?
Yeah.
And all that it comes with, and all the complexities of it. And so I feel like the doubts would come from that inundation.
Okay.
Or you have some discussion, people are just in your... And also, to be fair, the other point about sometimes family can be very convincing or intrusive. And you're like, so now I am at odds with everybody because of this choice. Is it worth it? So you end up feeling like, am I going to lose, friendship? Not friendships. Those ones, you can find new friends.
Yes.
But I feel like family can be one of those things where you feel like getting convinced. Like I told you, my ex's mom called me from a different country to convince me to have children. That could easily shift and change your mind. And especially if you're dating somebody for so long, it could easily be like, okay, just one child. And then I'm gonna be resentful, or you don't know how it will play out. And you will have kids because of coercion.
And I sort of feel, the way you framed it, which I completely appreciate and is true. Am I going to kind of lose family or lose relationship with family because of this choice that I've made? I almost feel that we need to reframe that. It's like this is my choice. If truly, as my family, you care and you respect and all these things, like I just feel like we need to invert that question. You know what I mean?
As
like
we
I completely
should, right?
exactly as
But
we should.
but-
But the reality, of course, is as you're.
Yes. But imagine something like relationships where that's the only deal breaker.
Yeah.
The loss, whether it happens, it's still a loss of some sort, right? And you could easily be like, okay, is this worth it? Like you end up not being partnered up.
Yes.
But that was the only, like if you had thought about dotting the T's, crossing the T's and dotting the I's, that was the last straw. It could easily...
It could flip.
It could flip.
Yes.
And then you'd be in a very different circumstance.
Yeah.
So I think that's things we have to think about.
True.
Yeah.
True. But I applaud you
Thank you.
for your choice, but more importantly for being unapologetic about your choice, living in your truth so boldly. I will keep repeating that thing. Did I stutter? Now, when someone tells me I don't know what to, I'm like, did I stutter? Did you hear me say? So I love it for you. I love that you are obviously living your best life. You look great. And I'm just
Thank
like, this woman, she just came from I don't know how many hour flights. Look how nice she's looking now.
Thank you.
So you're obviously living a good life, living your best life, enjoying life, doing very good, impactful things. There are many women who come after you who will benefit from your vocalness right now about this choice. There are very many people who come after you who, it's this whole thing of you plant the seed and others enjoy the shade of the tree. I really feel you being vocal about your choice will do that.
Thank you.
For so many others. As we wrap up, in case there's someone out there, because as you're saying, a lot of people who are maybe struggling with this choice or who have made this choice may feel very invisible. If someone wanted to reach out to you, is there a way they can reach out to you, like on your socials? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Instagram would work, my email.
Okay. So what's your IG handle? We'll make sure we put all of this in the podcast description.
At Cate Nyambura with a Catey Nyambura.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
I don't mind answering questions.
Yeah.
And I think it's the first time I felt like I had to publicly speak about it.
Yeah.
Because I always felt like you say, like you don't discuss this in mainstream.
Yes.
Especially when my friends were like, yeah, it's a good choice, but you don't have to keep saying it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
As
It
if
should be
it's-
just quiet.
Yeah, just
and
be quiet. It's the
invisible.
first time
We respect your choice, but just
yeah, talk about things like global health and
Yes.
access to commodities,
Yes.
not
Yeah. Well, thank you for choosing my platform,
Thank
this
you.
podcast, for being one of the places that you start talking about it publicly.
Thank you.
We might bring you back again and again.
Absolutely, I'm happy to come
to
back.
talk about it from different angles.
Absolutely.
But I love this, and as I said earlier on, for me, this is what this podcast is about. At the heart of this podcast is celebrating and amplifying people who have chosen to live differently, who have made alternative life choices and are unapologetic about it and are living in their truth. Because I'm just like, we are not going to be silenced anymore. We are not going to be made to feel invisible anymore. Our lives are worthy. Or
yes.
apologetic, correct. Our lives are worthy. So thank you for being here today, for sharing space with me. Very grateful to you. And we will make sure that all your social media handles are in our podcast description, so that if anyone wants to reach out to you specifically about this topic, then they can do so.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I want to appreciate you for having a podcast. I think we need more women in podcasting and more women occupying public spaces and public narratives and changing and reframing and rethinking.
Yeah.
Because it's time that we're not countering any narrative, but we're creating our own.
I like
and
that.
absolutely coming to say this is what we think and it's valid and it's what we're continuing to think.
Yeah.
So and amplifying that.
Yes, but I love what you said. We're not trying to counter any narrative. We're just creating our own. We're amplifying the narrative we want to be out there.
Yes. So thank you for holding that space for that.
Thank you. I love that. I'm going to write that down for myself after this, just to be a constant reminder of.
We're not countering anybody's
Yes,
narratives. We're here
nor
to
are we interested.
Nor are
Frankly,
we
it's not good use of our energy.
Yes, and so we're here to also just occupy public spaces
Thank
and be very
you.
bold
Yes,
about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
boldly and apologetically occupy public
And
spaces.
like you say, I think we have to allow enough, create more tables where women can have different discussions and be comfortable around those conversations and approach these things from different angles. Because like we say, the misconceptions that we discuss often come from being in places where you only think there's only one way to discuss this one topic. Yeah.
Correct. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
For your wisdom, your insight. I really do feel like you will be a guest again, but no pressure.
We'll talk about it when schedules align.
When schedules align, when the universe aligns it. But I'm so deeply grateful to you for being here today and for sharing space. Thank you so much.
Asante.
And to my dear listener, I hope you enjoyed this conversation that I had today with Cate Nyambura. And beyond enjoying it, I hope that it did something for you in terms of encouraging you to live out your life choices boldly and unapologetically and live freely in your truth, because frankly, there's many of us out here who are making alternative life choices and living those choices proudly and boldly. If you enjoyed today's episode, please feel free to share it with someone who you think could benefit from it, whether that's a friend or a family member or anyone within your networks who might benefit from this conversation today. And you can continue to journey with us, Conversations with Kũi, from wherever you get your podcasts from, and on YouTube for the full video episodes. We'll also be sure to put Kate's social media handles in our podcast descriptions in case you want to reach out to her. You can also engage with us on any of our social media platforms, and all of that will be listed in the podcast description. Until next time, may we all live vulnerably and have courage in our truth. Thank you. Stay well.